Askreddit by Frosty Dude 78. What is your craziest high school story from when you were teens? My senior year I took a class that was essentially me being a student worker in the office for the last hour of the day. I got bored one day and made a Craigslist ad with the school's phone number saying I was selling my 65-inch flat screen for $100 so my wife wouldn't get it in the divorce. I think they got around 100 calls before the ad got removed. I put a college buddy's number up for the big state rivalry football game. He had stopped coming to class cause he was playing Fallout 4 hectares. Left it for 2.5 days. We had a laugh at the first class he showed up at, and I took it down. I spent half of senior prom hiding in the bathroom due to social anxiety. I have a similarly pathetic experience. I used to volunteer when I was about 16-17 at my local hospital because I wanted to do medicine at university. I supposedly did this every Saturday for about a year. After a few weeks I started hiding in the hospital toilets until my shift ended because I couldn't tolerate the social anxiety. After a few weeks I told the ward that I was quitting but without telling my parents, and I would just wander around the hospital for, like, 3 hours every Saturday. The awful thing I have found about social anxiety is that people think you're exaggerating or making it up, but it has genuinely massively affected my life negatively. I'm about 15 years older now and I'm still just as anxious physiologically, but I have managed to force myself to care less. The class above mine had like 70 expulsions. They were also the coolest class while I was there. My graduating class was purged when were juniors, 100 students in 1 week gone. Myself and a friend were number 95 and 98. During senior pranks, apparently some dude took a shit on the floor beside a urinal, but the janitors thought it was fake, so it stayed there for like a week. I didn't believe it until I saw pictures. Janitors could also just be lazy. Maybe that was just my school. There was a sticky spill spot and some other messes I remember seeing over my HS years that were there for at least a month. So, one morning before school started, everyone was directed into the gym as we arrived. The assistant principal told us what happened, and he was furious. Some former students had broken in the night before and spread shit in the halls and rubbed it on a bunch of doorknobs. They also put urine in a bunch of the lockers. We were all sent home and they had to close the school for a couple of days and bring in a hazmat team to clean the school. I attended a small private school for my junior and senior years. One of our teachers never came back after spring break. He was convicted for numerous sex crimes involving 2 minors. I don't remember the exact convictions, but it involved child porn and sexual exploitation. As far as we know, the victims didn't attend our school. Many of his former students started therapy. He taught the freshman Bible classes. The Bible part explains it. He might have wanted to become a priest of the Catholic Church and needed to do the tradition. Pedophilia. Was captain of the varsity academic team quiz bowl type things senior year of high school. We were invited to compete on the Long Island Challenge, a Jeopardy type show for high school kids. Each team from each school was allowed to take an audience to root for them in the studio when we shot the episodes. One of my best friends was chosen to be a part of the crowd. So he decided to pre-game the entire bus ride at 7 AM with a fifth of bourbon, iced tea, and an egg sandwich. Gets on the bus and immediately throws up over this dude. Tries to tell the guy to calm down. Instead dude goes, "What the fuck?" Teacher kicks everyone off the bus except the 4 of us who are going to compete. Tells us, "I don't care how drunk or high you guys are, we're going to win that match." And we did. Kicked ass for 3 rounds. The next week we had breathalyzers in every class and JLNO making jokes about our high school. Here's some evidence. Teacher say to a student, "Take the door," not sure it's a saying in English. Meaning leave immediately. It's also a rude way to say it. So the student took the door out of its hinges and walked away with it. And X200B. Also, in my class we pulled a prank. Someone yelled ostrich and everyone hid their head under the deck. It was a simple, nice prank. Haha, first half is hilarious if that's true. Senior year, our star basketball player got drunk at a party. It was well below freezing that night, so he called his dad to come pick him up. Well, his dad was pissed and told him to walk home, so he did. He fell asleep on the way and froze to death. This was only the first student to die before we all graduated college. I think our high school was cursed. His dad will have to live with that awful decision the rest of his life. Talk about pain and heartache. We had a teacher that was pretty much universally hated even by the other teachers. She would tell students they would never make it in college, get used to working minimum wage jobs, encouraging things like that. She was about 40, looked like she cut her own hair, never wore makeup and wore the same 2 or 3 dresses all the time. One day she left school early because her 2 little kids that she left home alone made Kool-Aid and they didn't have sugar, so they made it with salt and they had to go to the emergency room. They finally fired her when she came to a basketball game drunk. About 6 years after I graduated, my wife came home complaining about this horrible woman that was her new boss at her government office. She was despised and already had gotten in trouble with management for talking down to her employees. Yep, it was her, my old teacher. She actually died a few years after. Small world, I guess. I went to a very stale, very strict private school where you got detentions for having your shirt untucked or drinking water in class. Banal stuff like that. Very rarely did anyone act up. Nobody swore at teachers or smoked behind bicycle sheds or anything like that. But one day this bully, who later became a coke dealer and is now in prison for running over a police officer, had one of his victims fight back. He tripped him up and, the bully being obese, struggled to get back onto his feet. Clearly we saw an opportunity because all of us, in my memory it was about 20 or so fellow pupils, ran over and started beating the absolute shit out of him. Including myself. This guy once spat at me after I tried to make peace with him. We were just kicking him with all the might our privileged little legs could muster, more ordinarily accustomed to kicking a rugby ball than a human boy. I guess it's only crazy when you consider the kind of school I went to. This, and nothing even close to it, ever happened before or since during my time there. That's a pretty wild parenthetical side note. The cops came escort me out of the school and brought me down to the station for questioning. No idea why. Apparently my English teacher didn't like me because she was very religious Christian and I didn't buy into monotheism, so she called the cops and said I was a potential school shooter. They asked me if I wanted to sue for defamation of character, but I declined because I didn't want to deal with that stress. I instead dropped out and got my GED and went straight to work and learning trades. This was my senior year. Damn TF cult shit is that. Graduation prank. Someone decided it would be a hilarious idea to bring their 2-stroke dirt bike to school and brap from the forum all the way to the cafeteria and around the school. Principal was hella pissed. A similar thing happened in my town. There are 2 separate high schools, one for boys, one for girls, traditional English style and NZ. The girls one year got on dirt bikes with helmets so you couldn't see who they were and went around the boys' school topless. It was hilarious. Probably the first time that some of the boys had seen real life boobas too. Some of the upperclassmen of the JV football team decided to haze some of the underclassmen on the team by raping them with a broomstick. This happened at another high school when I was a sophomore in school. My dad coached HS football for almost 40 years. He had strict no hazing policies. When the broomstick hazing thing happened, he very seriously told me that these stories popped up every 5 years or so. Lo and behold, I was finishing up college and there was another story about it. Teenage boys are the worst. During Christmas break of my freshman year of high school, I moved to a new town. About 2 weeks later, after lunch, I was hanging out outside in an alley attached to the school where kids would go sneak cigarettes. I was leaning up against a wall and this kid I had never spoken to ran up to me and said, "Hey, what's up?" I started to say not much, but he was already punching me in the face, which slammed my head against the brick wall behind me. Dazed and terrified, I immediately started running. Unfortunately, I was running down the alley, which led to a door, which was locked. He caught up to me and threw me on the ground. He straddled me, his legs pinning my arms to my sides. He just kept punching me in the face over and over, slamming my head into the pavement. A group of about 20 students stood there watching. No one yelled stop or anything like that. Some kids even egged. Just as suddenly as he had approached me, he just got up and walked away. He acted like nothing had happened, and when he had to face consequences for what he had done, he seemed to be shocked. He had his friends harass and bully me for roughly 2 years afterward, even after I transferred to a different school trying to get away from them. I hope that person burns in this life and the next. If I was there, I would have helped you. I had a similar but nowhere near as severe experience when I was in 6th or 7th grade. Our class was lined up in the gym for school pictures. The actual picture were being taken in another room, but the line of people was in the gym. One of the kids in our class had Asperger's and was sensitive to bullying. This guy named Isaac, who was in 10th or 11th grade, started bullying him, then pushed him to the ground and made him cry. Then he put him in a headlock. I ran over and told him to stop and tried to pull him off. This made him mad and he beat me up and put me in a headlock. The entire class just sat there and watched this happen. I screamed at them asking why they didn't help. They just kinda looked around and didn't respond, then pretended like the whole thing didn't just happen. Made me sick how uncaring they were. This kid in my high school was doing nipple piercings in the school bathroom for money. He had a whole setup too, a table, ice cubes and a bunch of different needles. They shut it down after a dude passed out from blood loss from one of his hilariously unprofessional piercing attempts. How would someone bleed that much without someone noticing? Girls' boarding school. This girl used to wear a very distinctive yellow scarf. She only had one and everybody knew it. One day she was sneaking around the fence talking to her boyfriend on the other side, and a custodian saw her and chased her. Rather than getting caught, she climbed over the fence and he caught the scarf. He decided to wait till morning, wear the scarf to the morning assembly, and called her name for her to explain why he has her scarf. She came forward wearing the exact same scarf, and with a confused face said, "Maybe you are wearing it because you like it and bought it?" Turns out she and her BF had the matching yellow scarf. So she just climbed over the wall, took her BF's scarf, waited a while and climbed back. Not crazy, but I still laugh about it. Like 7 of us were at the mall. Next to the mall is a small park with a pond. We call one kid's mom to pick us up and we have one too many people for the number of seats. Someone has to go. So we pool all our cash, like $11, and call Mike over. "Mike, we bet you all this that you can't run around the pond in under 2 minutes." Mike starts running. Mom pulls up. We all pile in and start driving. Staring at Mike just standing there with his hands up like WTF. But he got $11 out of it. Only had to walk about 3 miles home. Ran away from home and got kidnapped. Classic. My classmate and her sister was killed by their brother. No one ever found out the reason.